There's a moment that comes quietly, almost without warning. A man stands before the mirror, staring at a face that feels familiar but foreign, not because he's changed, but because he hasn't. The same fears, the same stories, the same safe excuses playing on repeat. The days bleed together, and the reflection looking back seems to whisper, "You were supposed to be more than this." That realization doesn't roar. It corrodes. It eats at the edges of your comfort until you can't lie still anymore. Something inside begins to ache, not for pleasure, not for success, but for destruction. The kind that doesn't tear your life apart, but clears the fog so you can finally see. Clarity always comes dressed as ruin. And here lies the paradox. To rebuild, you must first burn. Not the world around you, but the version of yourself that keeps shrinking to fit within it. The man who bargains with fear, who negotiates with pain, who finds safety in stagnation, that man must go. Not improved, not repaired, erased. That's the heartbeat of Stoicism. It's not about decorating your mind with quotes or pretending calm while chaos grows inside. It's about transformation so deep it feels like death, because in many ways it is. The death of who you were, to make space for who you could be. When life whispers that you've outgrown your old skin, ignoring it is a slow form of dying. You begin to notice it everywhere, in conversations that drain you, in laughter that no longer feels real, in the company of people who only recognize your past self. They'll say, "You've changed." Let them. They're not meant to understand the man you're becoming. You are no longer trying to fit into their world. You're building one they can't define. Every past version of you is only a shadow. And shadows survive only when you keep standing in the same light. Once you move, the shadow dissolves. That's how growth begins, not in noise, not in applause, but in the quiet disconnection from everything familiar. It's disorienting at first. You'll feel the distance, the discomfort, the pull to go back. But don't. The pain you feel is not punishment. It's proof. It means the old structure is cracking. It means your life is making room for truth. And truth, raw, unfiltered, often ugly, is the foundation of real power. The Stoics taught that endurance isn't about passive suffering, it's creation through adversity. You become both the sculptor and the stone, chiseling away illusions until only honesty remains. You strip yourself of false certainty, of excuses, of dependence on validation, and what's left, though smaller, is unbreakable. So if you feel that pull, that inner voice whispering that the person you've been is no longer enough, don't drown it with distractions. Don't silence it with comfort. Listen. That's the call to transformation. Not to slightly change, but to erase and rebuild. It doesn't matter who you've been. What matters is what you're willing to destroy. This is not about revenge. It's not about proving anyone wrong. It's about silence, stillness, and reinvention. Not for the world, for yourself. From this moment forward, the bridges behind you no longer serve you. Burn them. Not out of anger, but out of clarity. Like ancient warriors who set fire to their ships, so retreat was impossible. They understood, if there's no way back, there's only the way forward. That's how you begin again, not by waiting for courage, but by removing every path that leads you to your former self. Because the fire you light behind you is the same fire that will forge who you're meant to become. When you set fire to your past, you discover what you're truly made of. There's a reason ancient warriors burned their ships when they reached enemy shores. It wasn't madness, it was clarity. It was a vow written in flame: there is no going back. The only direction left was forward, through the chaos, through the fear. That's the kind of decision you must make about your old self. You can't keep your past close just in case. You can't keep revisiting old wounds when life gets hard. Every time you do, you rebuild the bridge you swore you'd burn. And when pressure rises, you'll cross it again back into the habits, the people, and the stories that kept you small. Most people want transformation without sacrifice. They say they're ready for change, but they keep one foot in the familiar. They still text the person they've outgrown. They still scroll through the same feeds that feed their fears. They still hold on to nostalgia like it's a lifeline. But real growth doesn't negotiate. It demands a clean break. The past isn't harmless, it has gravity. Every thought you replay, every memory you romanticize, every excuse you whisper, becomes a weight pulling you backward. The Stoics understood this. They reminded us that we are not our memories, we are our choices. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." That includes the past. You decide whether to wear it like chains or carry it like armor you've already outgrown. Burning the bridge doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It means refusing to let it dictate what happens next. It means catching yourself mid-thought when you say, "That's just who I am," and challenging it with, "Who do I want to become?" Because as long as your emotions remain tied to your former identity, every new version of you will rest on a cracked foundation. Transformation must become non-negotiable. It must feel sacred. That may mean deleting old numbers, walking away from people who no longer see you, cutting ties with habits that once helped you survive, but now sabotage your growth. It's not about cruelty, it's about renewal. If you leave even a single thread connected to your old self, you will pull yourself back when things get heavy, and they will get heavy. Change is not a steady climb, it's a collapse and a rebuild. It's breaking down everything that isn't real and choosing to live only by what's true. In those moments of collapse, your mind will try to seduce you with comfort. It'll whisper, "Go back, just for a little while." It'll offer you old escapes, dressed as peace, the relationship that numbed you, the distraction that dulled you, the habits that gave you safety but stole your strength. That's when the bridges must already be gone, so there's no return, only forward, only through. People will notice. They'll say you've changed. Some will call you distant, cold, arrogant. But they're not talking to you. They're mourning the version of you that was easier to control. Let them. You're not responsible for their comfort. You're responsible for your evolution. Not everyone gets to meet the man you're becoming. Some were only meant to know the man you were. Their chapter in your story is finished. Yours continues, but only if you stop rewriting the same page. There's a kind of freedom that begins when the past can no longer reach you, not because it's gone, but because you've grown beyond its touch. Once that happens, everything shifts. Your standards rise. Your habits sharpen. Your boundaries become sacred. The version of you that once apologized for being too much, for wanting more, for outgrowing old lives disappears. You begin to walk with quiet confidence. Not the kind that shouts, but the kind that doesn't flinch. You stop chasing validation. You stop explaining yourself. You stop asking for permission to evolve. You understand that burning the bridge is not about destruction, it's about declaration. It's the moment you say to life, "I will not go back to less than I deserve." And the fire behind you? It's not just a symbol, it's a reminder. Each time you doubt yourself, each time you feel weak, remember the flames. Remember that you chose to move forward with no safety net, no retreat, no exit. That's where strength begins, not in comfort, but in commitment. So ask yourself, honestly, what bridges are still standing behind you? What pieces of your old identity are you still protecting? What story do you keep replaying just because it's familiar? Because the same fire that destroys your past is the fire that will forge your future. When you learn to walk alone, you stop needing the world's permission to become who you are. There comes a point in every man's evolution where the noise fades, friends drift, routines crumble, and suddenly the road is quiet. At first, that silence feels like loss. But in time, you realize it's not loneliness you're meeting, it's yourself. Most people fear being alone because they've never truly met their own mind. They drown themselves in company, in conversation, in endless stimulation, anything to avoid hearing the voice inside that asks uncomfortable questions. But silence, when faced without fear, becomes a forge. It strips away distraction until only truth remains. Walking alone means you stop outsourcing your decisions to the crowd. You stop living for approval, for applause, for validation. You dress for yourself, speak for yourself, move for yourself. You no longer measure worth by how many people agree with you, but by how aligned you are with your own code. And here's the paradox. The more you walk alone, the less alone you feel, because you begin to understand that solitude is not emptiness, it's space. Space to think, to create, to strengthen your will. It's the ground where independence takes root. The Stoics understood this intimately. Epictetus taught that true freedom comes not from getting what you want, but from wanting what happens, using every event, every hardship, as fuel for mastery. That's what solitude teaches. When you no longer have a crowd to blame or lean on, you become the architect of your own strength. At first, the quiet feels unnatural. You'll crave noise, the way an addict craves distraction. You'll feel the urge to reach for your phone, for comfort, for someone to fill the silence. Resist it. Sit in the stillness long enough, and the silence begins to speak. It tells you what's real, what's false, what's been borrowed from others. It shows you where your true work begins. When you learn to walk alone, you stop following. You stop performing. You start moving with intention. Every step becomes deliberate. You protect your time like it matters because it does. You learn to say no, not from bitterness, but from self-respect. You realize that peace is expensive, and you stop spending it on people who don't value it. But make no mistake, solitude is not soft. It tests you. There will be nights when silence feels too loud, when your doubts echo so sharply you can hardly breathe. That's the crucible. That's where most people turn back. But if you stay, if you sit through the discomfort instead of escaping it, something miraculous happens. You find yourself standing stronger than you've ever been. You begin to trust your own judgment. You stop seeking reassurance for every choice. You start seeing rejection not as proof of inadequacy, but as evidence of authenticity. The need to belong dissolves. The need to become takes over. This is what solitude reveals, that you are not fragile. You are not incomplete. You've simply been diluted by noise. And when you strip that noise away, your voice returns clearer than ever. The world often mistakes solitude for arrogance. They'll call you cold, detached, too focused. But what they're really sensing is sovereignty, a man who doesn't need permission to exist. You don't explain yourself anymore. You don't justify your silence. You let your presence speak for you. And ironically, that's when the right people start to appear, not because you need them, but because your energy calls them. The disciplined attract the disciplined. The grounded attract the grounded. The authentic draw authenticity. You stop chasing, and everything aligned with you begins to find its way to you. The Stoic path is not meant to be crowded. It's meant to be clear. Each day you wake alone, you remind yourself, no one is coming to save you. The responsibility, the power, the momentum, All of it is yours to build. You stop waiting to be understood and start understanding yourself. That's the quiet power of walking alone. It refines you. It cuts away the unnecessary. It makes you sharper, simpler, truer. And one day, you'll look back and realize that solitude wasn't punishment. It was preparation. Because when you can stand fully alone, when your peace no longer depends on company, when your confidence no longer depends on praise, you've reached something sacred, self-reliance. And from that point on, you don't walk alone out of necessity. You walk alone out of choice. Comfort is the silent killer of potential. It arrives soft, stays quietly, and leaves you hollow. Comfort feels kind at first. It tells you you've earned a rest. It whispers that you deserve to take it easy, that you've done enough for today. It wraps itself around you like a warm blanket, familiar, soothing, safe. But the longer you stay in its arms, the weaker you become, because what comforts you today will confine you tomorrow. The Stoics understood this long before modern philosophy gave it a name. They knew that comfort dulls the mind and weakens the will. Seneca wrote that we must train for winter to deliberately endure difficulty, to sharpen the edges of the soul before life does it for us. Without challenge, strength decays. Without struggle, virtue atrophies. Weakness doesn't knock loudly. It creeps in disguised as rest, as reward, as "I'll start tomorrow." It tells you that one skipped workout, one delayed task, one harmless indulgence doesn't matter. And alone, it doesn't. But repeated, it becomes identity. One small surrender at a time, the fire dims. The man who once dreamed of becoming unbreakable slowly becomes comfortable being average. Comfort promises peace but delivers paralysis. It makes you forget the hunger that once drove you. It convinces you that stillness is safety, when in truth, stillness is decay. Life itself is motion. The Stoics called it logos, the ever-flowing reason that governs the universe. To resist that flow is to rot. Every powerful version of you that could exist is hidden behind a wall of discomfort. To reach it, you must move through the friction. That's the rule. Growth demands resistance. And resistance demands honesty. So ask yourself with brutal clarity, where have you grown soft? Where have you made excuses? What areas of your life have you allowed comfort to rule? Maybe it's your body. Maybe it's your habits. Maybe it's the way you tolerate things that drain you just because they're familiar. Weakness isn't about lacking strength. It's about lacking willingness. And willingness can be trained. Every time you choose discipline over ease, you reinforce a new identity. You become someone who acts from principle, not emotion, from choice, not convenience. That's how you grow solid, not flashy, not loud, solid. Pain is not the enemy, it's the signal. It shows you where the work is needed. When something hurts, it's revealing the edge of your limits, and that edge is exactly where you're meant to train. The Stoic doesn't chase pain for its own sake. He uses it as a mirror. He asks, what is this discomfort trying to teach me? If you feel resistance when facing a challenge, good. That means you've found the boundary between who you are and who you could become. Push into it, one rep, one choice, one honest conversation at a time, because effort compounds the same way neglect does. Every disciplined act is a quiet declaration. I will not be ruled by comfort. The mind, left untrained, seeks pleasure, like water seeks the easiest path. But you are not meant to drift. You are meant to direct. The Stoics believed in deliberate difficulty, fasting, early rising, exposure to cold not as punishment, but as proof that the spirit rules the body. When you can deny comfort, you reclaim command over yourself. Modern life makes this harder. Everywhere you turn, there's an easier version of everything. Instant food, instant entertainment, instant validation. The world is built to sedate you, to keep you scrolling, sitting, consuming, never confronting. But the man who chooses the harder path, who builds when others consume, who trains when others rest, who speaks truth when others stay silent, that man separates himself from the herd. And he does it not for glory, but for freedom. Because freedom doesn't come from ease, it comes from endurance. When you stop negotiating with weakness, you stop being owned by it. You begin to see that the pain you feared was never there to destroy you, it was there to reveal you. The Stoic life is not ascetic for its own sake. It's disciplined because discipline is the root of peace. A man who controls his appetites controls his destiny. A man who can face discomfort willingly is impossible to enslave. So, for the next 7 days, do something that defies comfort. Wake earlier, speak less. Train harder, say no when you'd normally say yes. Watch what happens to your mind when you stop feeding its softness. You'll feel resistance, but beneath that resistance is liberation. Every time you choose the harder thing, you chip away at the illusion that you're fragile. You remind yourself that strength isn't found, it's forged. And one day, you'll look back and realize comfort was never peace, it was anesthesia. The pain you once avoided became the forge that built your freedom. Because the path to your strongest self begins the moment you stop settling for what's easy and start living for what's real. You cannot build a new life on top of an old self. To be reborn, you must first be erased. Improvement is not enough. At some point, the man you are must end so the man you're meant to be can begin. That's not a metaphor, it's reality. Because small tweaks, new routines, and better habits can't save you if the foundation is still cracked. You can't graft greatness onto a weak identity. You must rebuild from the ground up. Most people spend their lives trying to improve the costume while ignoring the character. They change their diet, their job, their clothes, but never their story. They say, "I'm just not that kind of person." And the moment those words leave their mouth, they become true. Identity is the prison most people never escape because they mistake familiarity for truth. But Stoicism teaches something radical, that identity is malleable. You are not your past, you are your philosophy. The thoughts you feed your mind each day dye the color of your soul. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts," meaning the way you think, the way you judge, the way you react. These are not harmless habits. They are acts of creation. If you want to reinvent yourself, you start by confronting the lies you've been telling yourself. The ones that say, "I'm lazy, I'm not confident, I've always been this way." These are not truths, they're permissions. Every time you repeat them, you reinforce a false identity built from fear. So the work begins not outside, but inside. Catch every limiting belief as it appears. Question it. Trace its origin. Did it come from a parent's fear? A teacher's? Insult? A failure you never processed? Once you find the root, you pull it out, because awareness is liberation. Then you replace it. You write new code for your mind. You stop saying, "I'm trying to be disciplined," and instead, "I am a disciplined man." You don't whisper, "Maybe one day I'll be strong." You declare, "I am becoming strength itself." The words matter. The repetition matters, because every sentence you speak in your mind is a brick in the architecture of your identity. And you reinforce it daily, not with perfection, but with consistency. Each action, no matter how small, becomes proof of who you are becoming. You move differently. You speak differently. You stop seeking validation from the old world because you no longer belong to it. This process is uncomfortable. It's supposed to be. Reinvention requires the death of what was. The habits that kept you safe will fight back. The people who knew your old self will question you. They'll call it arrogance, distance, coldness. But what they're really saying is, you no longer fit inside the version of reality we shared. And that's exactly the point. Let them misunderstand. You're not here to be understood. You're here to evolve. You will lose people. You will lose places. You will lose pieces of your past that once defined you. But you'll gain something far greater: alignment. And once you live in alignment, you stop chasing peace. You become peace. Reinvention is not about creating a new mask. It's about removing the old ones. It's about looking at yourself with brutal honesty and saying, everything false must go. Every fear, every excuse, every label you've worn to make others comfortable gone. And when you strip yourself bare, when you stand in the silence of who you truly are, that's when clarity arrives. That's when discipline stops being an effort and becomes your nature. When solitude stops being loneliness and becomes your sanctuary. When pain stops being suffering and becomes your teacher. This is the essence of Stoicism, not passive endurance, but active creation. Not just surviving hardship, but using it to sculpt yourself into something unshakable. You are the sculptor and the stone, the fire and the forge. One day, you'll realize that the man you were, the one who chased comfort, delayed dreams, and feared his own potential, was never your enemy. He was your raw material. He existed so you could refine him, so you could rise. And when you rise, you do it quietly. No announcement, no drama, just presence. Because true power doesn't demand attention. It commands respect through stillness. That's the transformation Stoicism calls for. A rebirth through destruction, a peace earned through discipline, a strength built through solitude. You don't need anyone's permission to begin. The decision is yours alone. So, here you are, standing between the man you were and the man you're meant to be. Behind you, the ashes of every excuse you've ever made. Ahead of you, the unknown, vast, dangerous, sacred. Step forward. Burn the script. Rebuild from truth. Become who you were always meant to be, because the future is watching, and it belongs to those who refuse to remain the same. If these words spoke to something deep inside you, if they reminded you of the strength you've been neglecting, then don't let this moment pass. Like this video, subscribe to Soul Align. Join the thousands walking this same path of clarity, discipline, and self-mastery. Not followers, not dreamers, builders. Because this is more than philosophy, it's a way of life. And your new life begins now.